everyone, hope you're all well today. So day 14 of my gratitude videos, and I decided to actually make a meal, one of our favorite meals. So if you're a non-South African, this is a little bit foreign to you. In South Africa we do something called a potjie, and a potjie is basically using a cast iron pot. Whatever you cook in it is normally cooked very slow and low for quite a while. It's normally cooked on an open fire outside. However, today I'm actually just using the gas stove for it, so you can do it either way. It's an awesome piece of equipment to have at home. They vary in price from like 300 to a couple of £1,000 depending on what you want, and then you get them as a flat bottom pot like this one that you can put onto a stovetop, and then you've got them with the legs as well that you can put outside in the fireplace, and they come in different sizes, so depending on your family you would buy one that kind of works for your family. This particular one is a number 3, and it's definitely enough for maybe six adults to eat from, so it's a decent sized pot. Today I'm going to make what we call in South Africa samp and beans. It's a stew made with samp, beans, and then a meat. So you would either use lamb or you would use beef. You could even use chicken, but lamb and beef I would say are probably the best. I'm going to be using some beef, and I've got some shin and a little bit of just various offcuts for potjie. So it's a cheaper meat because it's going to be cooking for a longer time. You don't have to go with an expensive cut of beef or cut of lamb, so you can go with some kind of stewing meat that can take a while to cook and will be tender by the end of the process. This process can take anything from 3 hours to 6 to 8 hours depending on the kind of potjie you're making. This one is probably going to take about 4 hours. And what you need for it is you'll need some onions, you'll need a variety of vegetables. We've got some root vegetables there. You can use whatever kind of vegetables. They need to be chunky. You definitely need some potatoes in it as well. So yeah, root vegetables on my side here. So I've got some sweet potato, I've got some carrots, some potato, I've got some beetroot as well, and obviously onion. So what I've done now is I've started frying off the onions, and then I'm going to fry off the meat and seal that off. Then take that all out, and then I'm going to fry up some of the spices and then put the meat back in. So check in a little bit later and see what the progress is. So just a note, with your samp, it's a samp and bean packet that you would buy at the shops. Now I don't think you'll get this overseas, I'm not sure, but in South Africa you get them in a variety of makes, and they're relatively inexpensive, probably like 10-12 rand a packet. And what you need to do is you need to soak that. We soak it for about 48 hours, some people soak it for 24 hours. You can buy them in the canned variety where it's already soft, but you definitely need to soak these samp and the beans so that they're slightly more soft, and so when you add them to the potjie they cook well. I've tried doing it without doing that at one stage, and then it's just undercooked and not pleasant. So definitely soak it for 2 hours, 2 days, sorry. And what you need to do is basically just put it into a bowl with some water, and then you would need to clean that water out maybe every couple of hours, maybe every 8 hours or so, and just make sure you've got some fresh water and keep cleaning it out. You'll also see a lot of the starch is released from the samp, so you'll get a little bit of that starch gone, and it gives you a cleaner dish in terms of the potjie. Okay, so in terms of the spices that I use in this dish, you could do it with beef or with lamb like I mentioned earlier. This one's a beef dish, and I've got a mix of potjie, what we call potjie spices in South Africa. So it's a ready mixed bunch of spices, and some of them are whole and some of them are crushed. And so what I've got in here is a little bit of turmeric, a little bit of fennel, a little bit of cinnamon, some star anise. It's got a little bit of chilies in it as well, some coriander, a little bit of garlic, a little bit of mustard seeds, and then obviously you're going to add your salt and your pepper as well. So yes, that's all been blended together. I like to add a little bit of fresh garlic as well, just to kind of lift it up a little bit, and maybe a little bit of crushed ginger as well. So those are the spices we're using for this particular dish. I'm sure you'll be able to find them in pretty much any store. You get the ready boxed packets of potjie mix, or you could just add all of those spices together, you know, whatever you've got in the cupboard. So anything that generally complements a stew, anything that complements beef or lamb would be ideal for this. Yeah, so at this stage you can see the meat's been fried off, and then I've also toasted all the spices off. I'm just allowing it to fry a little bit more before I add the stock and the wine, and then the sampan beans. Thereafter, I'm going to let this rest, and it's going to rest for it's going to sit for quite a while. What you want to do with the potjie is you don't want to fiddle with it too much. You don't want to be sticking your spoon in there. You don't want to be messing around with the pot. So you want to leave things for as long as possible. Okay, so the meat's been going for about 15 minutes or so. It's been sealed. The spices have been toasted off and added to the pot, and that's cooking away at the moment. We now need to add some kind of sauce. This is a bit of a cheat. I'm sure there are lots of nice stocks and stuff that you could use. I use the mutton and vegetable soup. And you get them in a variety of makes as well. And you just mix that with a bit of water, and then obviously I'm going to top that up with wine. Now you can, with red meat, you can go with a nice red wine, or you could even add a little bit of white wine if you want. So I'm going to mix that up with some water. I'm going to pour that into the pot, and then I'm going to layer the sampan beans over that. And then we're going to leave this for quite a while. We're probably going to leave it for about 2 hours. We might need to top it up with a little bit more water, a little bit of wine as we go along, because you don't want it to totally dry out, but you also don't want to drown everything either. There's got to be sauce in a potjie, but you don't want to over sauce it. So now we're adding the samp, as I mentioned. And we're going to let this pot sit for quite a while at this stage, probably a good hour or two without fiddling with that pot. And it would be on a medium heat, not necessarily too high, because you don't want it to burn. Okay, so it's been about 3.5 hours now, and we're ready to put in the potatoes and the vegetables. So those you put in right at the end. They probably need a good 20-25 minutes to cook through. The vegetables are quite chunky, so they do need a bit of time. So let me just show you what the pot looks like at this stage. So you'll see the samp is plumped up quite nicely. The meat has been cooked really nicely. It's nice and soft. So now we're going to add those potatoes. Just pile them in there and just layer them over the top. And then we're going to take the chunky vegetables and we're going to layer those over the top there. And that's it. Now we're leaving this to cook for another, I'd say about half an hour to 40 minutes, and it should be ready. I'll show you guys what it looks like at the end. So there you have it, a nice beautiful pot of beef potjie. It's been cooking for about 5 hours. It's ready to serve. I normally serve it with some bread on the side. We don't really add any extra starch because we've got the sampan beans in there. It's a wonderful comforting meal, and we're about to eat it. So I hope you guys give this a try and maybe send me some pictures of your finished product. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.